Dear students, welcome to week 13. And this week we're having a guest, an expert who's going to tell you about her experience in ADR and cross-cultural differences when dealing with international business. She negotiates contracts. She works on dispute resolutions at international level. She's a good friend, and she's in Hong Kong. That's why I wanted to bring in the class someone from another jurisdiction and with a different cultural background. But I want to have Shu Min Han introduce herself and tell us first who she is and what she does. Thank you
Thank you,
for
Paolo.
joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name's Hinahan. I work in the same firm as Paolo at Squire Patton Boggs. I'm a senior associate in the practice area of telecommunications, media, and technology, and also sports and entertainment and litigation. I do a lot of corporate work, and we're actually sitting under the corporate practice, but my work is a hybrid of all these different areas that I've just mentioned earlier. And because these areas are very wide, I have a lot of dispute resolution related work, not only in terms of going to court, but also for mediation and arbitration and even negotiation between parties by without prejudice communications. So I'm very happy that Paolo invited me to talk a little bit about my experience. Thank you.
Very glad to have you, and let's go into the questions I wanted to ask you because I want to try to see what your experience is on cultural differences when you do your job, right? Litigations, mediation, arbitration, negotiations. What is the role of the culture in your, and how does that impact you? So let's start with the first question. So, could you start by sharing a bit about your journey into alternative dispute resolution? What drew you to ADR or to do negotiation and mediation? And how has your cross-cultural background, because you are, of course, you are from Hong Kong, but you are also English educated. So how does that shape the way you approach international disputes?
Yes, thank you. So actually, I started my trainee practice in commercial and corporate law. I did a lot of contract drafting. And then one day, my litigation partner realized that I was available. And so he decided to give me some commercial cases to deal with. So it was then that I realized that when we draft contracts, we feel like we finish the contract, we finish our job. But there's a lot of potential nuances that can become the crux of a dispute in the future. So when we think about contracts, we need to actually approach it in a very wide scale to try to think about all the options, all the alternatives, and the possibilities. So I took on these litigation cases, and I realized that it actually made me a better commercial lawyer because then I can see where the problems might lie. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know everything. But it was during that experience that I decided that I really liked litigation. I really liked thinking about thinking backwards, taking steps back to understand how that dispute actually arose, so that it can better my drafting of contracts in the future. And it was during this time that I decided to take the mediation exam and become accredited as a mediator and understand the different skills that are involved in trying to help parties resolve the dispute. So not only as a lawyer do we have to fight for our client's best interest and fight in court and always stand our position, but it's also important to understand that there are alternatives to court. And in order to advise the client with their best interests in mind, it's important to think about how they can work together with the other party to try to resolve a dispute. And that I think is quite important when we're thinking about ADR. And the cultural aspect, of course, comes in as well.
Because
So
you're born in Hong Kong, right? You were born in Hong Kong, or
yes,
yes,
yes.
and you grew up in Hong Kong, but you have Of course, you're an English solicitor as well, a UK solicitor, right? You
No,
study?
no. I
No?
studied there. Yeah, so I studied in Canada. I studied in the United Kingdom for law. And then I came back to do my postgraduate in Hong Kong at Hong Kong University. So I've had experience studying in different types of systems. And I think my experience in the international arena has also helped me to understand that different clients coming from different locations in the world would probably have different cultural um, uh, differences. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of
there's
course.
definitely
Yes,
some. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think the interesting part of being uh, from Hong Kong is that you have, even as a Chinese, you are in a very unique position compared to mainland China, for example, right? So you have this mix between Chinese culture and English traditions, like what you study at law school, for example, is UK law, English law, and Hong Kong is an international hub, right? I mean, where you can meet every nation in the street. So that's the fascinating part of being coming from Hong Kong, definitely. The second question I have is, in your experience, how do cultural differences, whether rooted in communication styles, values, or expectations, play out in mediation or arbitration? Could you share an example where culture significantly influenced the process or outcome of your case?
Thank you, Paolo. Um, yeah, I think right before I share, I do want to follow up on the comment you made. I think working in Hong Kong has allowed me to expand my understanding of the cultural understanding of different people because of um, the international nature of the Hong Kong market. That's where I met you, Paolo,
Yeah,
and
why?
it's the yeah, and there's a lot of movement of people. There's a lot of opportunities. Hong Kong is a common law bilingual system, uh, which is in China, so it's got a lot of different elements, and that in itself already requires an understanding of different cultures. So when it comes to mediation and arbitration, I think it is helpful to have that background, that sensitivity to the different types of cultures. I think um, I remember going into an arbitration, and some of the parties were from mainland China, some of the parties were from Hong Kong, some of the parties were from Europe, and we were working with King's Counsel in the UK as part of our team. And some of the actions of the client were a mystery to our counsel, and it's not because it's an unreasonable action. It's just because it's based on a lot of traditional cultural heritage, like how someone is expected to act or how someone is expected to play their role in the family. So I think when dealing with these type of situations, it's important to go in with no assumptions. Be very open-minded, have respect, and try to listen to understand what exactly the client is saying. And of course, sometimes it's not very straightforward. They might not know that you don't understand certain types of heritage or certain types of traditional actions. So it's important to respectfully clarify. And I think that's one of the things I learned from that arbitration.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, in a nutshell, I think you have summarized a lot of the issues we study in our course, and absolutely brilliant. Because, and I like when you say you politely ask questions, you try to clarify things when you don't understand, and you're open-minded, and uh, these are all amazing skills that you want to develop if you want to be someone like Inhan and deal with this complex, right, international situation where I think a contract negotiation can derail because of cultural misunderstandings. It seems almost absurd that that could happen, but it does happen, and that's why you need that sensibility. Right. Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you. Let me ask you, business negotiations often bring together parties with very different cultural assumptions, and that's what you just exemplified. What are some of the most common misunderstanding or challenges you have seen arise? And how do you, as a neutral, help bridge those gaps? Right? Like some concrete example, of these differences that you have encountered.
Okay, I guess the first example that pops in mind is a cultural difference, not in terms of the location of where the parties are from, but in terms of the business of the party.
Mm-hmm.
I remember negotiating a deal between a startup company, because in telecommunications, we deal with telecommunications media technology. We deal with a lot of startups, tech startups, and the like. And I remember that in these negotiations, there might be a cultural difference in the sense that to that startup, that founder, the company that they're selling or the company that some of the shares are going out to some third party is actually their baby. They created this out of nothing, and so it's very close at heart. If the other party takes it as just a plain commercial transaction with no sentimental value, then maybe the founder, the experience will not be as well as good as if that type of the necessary respect and understanding of where that seller is coming from is taken into account. So I think in that example, it's important to make the parties understand each other in a more clear fashion. And if you're representing the startup founder selling the product, then it's important to communicate with the other side to make them know that this is really their baby. Like sometimes maybe it's not just a matter of price, but it's how you deal with the project, how you deal with the company afterwards that is of priority to the seller. And that will help to bridge the gap in negotiations.
This is a great example because it shows us one of the things we have studied during the course, and I think the students will probably connect to your story and remember the in and out of the group issue, which is an interesting topic, being inside a certain group or outside a certain group. In this case, we have a certain person with a certain specialty. He grew up his own business and he has an amount of knowledge that the other party might not understand or neglect that emotional importance of that, because they belong or they're coming from a different path. So communicating those differences, even if it's not strictly cultural, it's so important, right? And I think another aspect that we might point out, I want to point out to the students, is information asymmetry. You remember one of the implicit biases we've always been talking about. If one of the parties doesn't understand everything about the others, they may make decisions on assumptions or perceptions that are wrong. And Inhan, you point out, is so important, so critical for the seller to be understood, that that's his baby, that was his creation, there's an emotional attachment. There's a piece of information that if we miss it in the negotiation, it will affect the outcome. And that's a great example. And thank you for sharing that.
Oh, I'd like to join your course as well. It's great material.
Well, it's a long way to California, but if you come and visit us in a class, we'll be very happy to have you there.
I'd love to.
Another question is, again, given your cross-cultural background, and I repeat that mix between Hong Kong and Chinese and Western cultures that come into you, that have built who you are today. Plus, I would say that the layer of really international, right? We share this being, people that deal with the whole world every day. How has navigating different cultural worlds shaped the way you see conflict and resolution? Do you find that your personal experience help you connect better with other parties in a unique way during negotiations or mediations or dispute resolutions in general, or not? Or has the cross-cultural background come out as an obstacle to you in solving problems?
Thank you. That's a good question. And I think I would definitely answer that the cross-cultural experience has helped. me to understand and to navigate different types of disputes, and also to understand the different types of parties. I think I think the more we understand, the more we see, the more exposed we are to the different types of thoughts or traditions or habits of different people, we can then help to bridge different gaps, really, just to help create a dialogue between the parties that we're working with, so that we can actually resolve the issue, be it as a mediator or even as an arbitrator. If you can understand where the parties are coming from, it's easier to narrow down the disputes or the actual disputes. Sometimes we see parties with a position, but they actually have an underlying need, which may not be as apparent as what they say on the paper, what they say in the statement of claim, what they say in their pleadings. Yeah. So I think that's really helpful.
And it's fantastic how in a few sentences you are able to capture so many of the issues that we teach in this class. Because, and that's I hope that my student, you want to become one day like that you're able to condense all this understanding of these issues. But brilliant, because I think what you just said encapsulate many of the concepts that I'm teaching in this class. And I think students will get great value from your answers. Last one is, based on your experience, what advice would you give to, I would say, to everybody, to business people, to lawyers, and even to students that are one day are going to be negotiating and mediating or resolving disputes? What would you give? What suggestion would you give them, in order to become culturally competent, right? What strategies and what cultural dimensions they should be aware of when dealing with cross-cultural disputes?
I think if you have a chance, it's important to travel more, to see more people. I would suggest you come to Hong Kong. You can also see more here. So not only to try to expand horizons from traveling, but maybe read more different types of newspapers. And I think the most important thing is, do not be afraid to ask questions, clarification questions. As long as you ask them politely to understand what's going on, that will really help a lot. It will help you figure out a lot of issues that may be, not apparent at this start.
Yes, I thank you. And I think during the course, I often say the same thing. You have to travel. If you want to deal with international business, get to know other cultures. And traveling is an amazing way to start doing that. I would say learn languages, read different literature, right? You don't have to read it in different languages, but at least you can read from other countries about their stories. And because the more you understand about their culture, the easier it will be to deal with them when you meet them, in your professional settings. Well, thank you, Inhan. That was absolutely amazing, and I really enjoyed this brief discussion. We invite you and officially inviting you to come to Los Angeles and come to give a lecture to the students next semester. And yeah, thank you again, really, and keep doing the great job you're doing.
Thank you. Grazie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.